It's an honor to call upon the next speaker, to set the context for the technical tracks, post lunch. So welcome Sukumar Rajagopal. Sukumar has 31 years of experience in IT services industry. He runs a digital transformation and behavior transformation enabler startup called Tiny Magic, with 4 co-founders since February 2015. He left Cognizant in April 2014 after nearly 19 years, where he served as Senior Vice President, Global Chief Information Officer, and Global Head of Innovation. Sukumar, in his 8-year stint as CXO in Cognizant, led award-winning transformation programs in IT, innovation, culture, and delivery management. Sukumar is an avid blogger, tweeter, a fitness enthusiast, and a travel bug. He researches on the Indus Valley civilization in his spare time. Sukumar received lifetime recognition for his work in IT through the 2014 Computer World Premier 100 IT Leaders Program. Sukumar is rated by Huffington Post as one of the top 100 social CEOs in 2014 and 13. Over to you.
Thank you. I know I'm standing between you all and lunch. I was supposed to speak for 45 minutes. Let me see if I can compress it a bit. I would like you all to watch this video first.
No. It's just construction. That's all. No. I'm not driving.
Are you okay?
Yeah. You?
I'm good.
Oh, no, not you. Listen, I'm going to have to call my agent. I'm going to get right back to you.
Mr. Burton, this is Insure Corp. We've received sensor data that indicates you were in an accident. Are you injured in any way?
I'm not injured, no.
Is anyone else injured?
I don't believe so.
Okay, where's my agent's number?
We have pinpointed your location and we are showing your car is not drivable. So we are dispatching an Uber car to take you to your destination.
That would be great.
I'm pressing 1. English. E-N-G-L-I, English.
May we give your coordinates to our appraiser drone to perform the appraisal?
Absolutely.
We have received the photos, assessed the damage, authorized the repair, selected a qualified repair facility, and have dispatched a tow truck to take your vehicle to that facility.
Perfect.
Yes, hi, this is... Yes, I'll hold.
We have looked up the other vehicle's insurance, transmitted the appropriate data to create the claim, and filed the California SR1 accident report. Can you confirm the information is correct on your phone, then hit the accept button?
I'll check it right now. Okay, all done.
Thank you. Your Uber car is arriving now.
I see it coming.
Accident, not payment, accident.
Your tow truck should be there now. Don't forget to leave your keys in the vehicle. Thank you for using Insure Corp, powered by Pivotal Labs.
I don't think that day is far off, right? So I'll bring up my presentation, please. Hopefully it works. Can anybody guess what this picture is showing? Yeah. What's special about the ATM picture? The first ATM. Anybody? Who did it? Sorry? No. It's a bank. Very good. Barclays. That was 1967. You should read about it. It's fascinating. But here is something interesting I found. In 1939 itself, another bank had deployed an ATM. This was done in the US, that's in the UK. Which company did this? It's a very famous bank. It's in India too. Starts with a C. Citibank. Now in 6 months, they shut down this initiative, saying there is not much demand. Interesting, isn't it? Now, what are the barriers to transformation? I know I'm running short of time and this is supposed to be an interactive presentation. Let's see. What are the barriers to transformation? Can few of you tell me what do you see as barriers? Resistance to change, okay. Ignorance. Legislation, okay. Competency. Mindset, okay. We'll come back to this. Those are good. You've all done Uber, Ola rides here? Yeah. Ever since Uber came out 10 years ago, it's kind of tortured me. How come I didn't come up with Uber? Now, this is a particularly egregious case. You know why? I was the Global Chief Information Officer of Cognizant. I had few thousand people in my department. Had I come up with the idea, I could have put it together in 3 months. The first version, not the current petabyte a day monster that it is today. But how come I didn't come up with that idea? Neither did I come up with Agile. I have been in software for 32 years now. Now, the bad news is I didn't come up with it, but there is a good news. Can anybody guess? Sorry? What is the good news in that? Bad news I have already said. The good news is Apple didn't come up with it, Google didn't come up with it, IBM didn't come up with it, 3M didn't come up with it, Intel didn't come up with it. 2 guys in a garage came up with it. So if they can do it, why can't we? So we need a new type of thinking, which hopefully we can master. So to explain what is needed, I'd like to do a thought experiment. It's something that I've done many times before. If you're already familiar, pardon me for the repetition. Imagine that tomorrow morning, how many of you are parents here? Okay. Imagine that tomorrow morning you open your door and you find a newborn baby like that, it's screaming its guts out. What is the first thing you will do? Shut the door. That is an option. What will be the first thing we will do? Come on, people. Pick up the baby. Call the police. Would you do that first? Pick up the baby and comfort it. Then you would wonder whose baby is it. Should I call the police? Whatever. Or maybe it's a neighbor's. Now that brings us to a very interesting finding in cognitive psychology. By default, human beings are in fault mode. Now the barriers to transformation that you all said, it is in fault mode? Now if you all knew, you are executives and leaders in many different firms. If you knew these are barriers, you could have overcome it. But we don't, because we tend to be in fault mode. The interesting thing is, the baby showed up as not our fault, but we take responsibility for it. We don't do that in real life when problems come. We are first in fault mode. We have to shift to responsibility mode. That's what makes the impossible into the possible, and that is the key for transformation. Why I didn't come up with Uber? I didn't take responsibility for when I would dance in the middle of the street to catch a cab. I never thought that's a problem. And I don't think any of you thought that to be a problem either. So we have to first take responsibility. Now we want to do transformation. Would we start with a big idea or a big problem? By now you are all wizened up to the idea that we have to start with a problem. Now that realization took me several years in my journey in the field of innovation to shift from big idea to big problem. Now let's see what are your top 3 big problems, top of mind. Few of you can volunteer your problems, please. Just tell me one each. Skill the staff. Okay? It's not kill the staff, right? Just kidding. Shortage of time, too much data, anything else? Lack of ownership. Okay. What happens is, when we are contemplating problems to solve, right, we tend to think of objectives. All the examples that were just mentioned are all objectives, they are not problems. Now we tend to start to generate idea from this level. This is sort of like the tip of the iceberg. Now I used to be in America and head of manufacturing practice. It was a $100 million practice. Every year my target will go up by 30-40% sales. So if my target went up by 30%, what would you do if you are in my shoes? What are the things you would do? Yeah, expand and do what? How do I expand my business 30-40% every year? Expand the, okay. Meet more customers. For that, what do I need to do? So what I would do is put more sales people on the street or feet on the street. Now, is that a good idea? It's okay. It's a mediocre idea. A really good idea would be if I had figured out how to find my customers' problems and solve them better. That's what I needed to do, but then I was not smart enough. So, because I was generating idea from the objective level. This is the first mistake we make. We are in fault mode, so we don't even start because we believe it's not possible. Then we get into big objective and start from there. So the curve looks something like this. We expect that immediately the project started, boom, the transformation has happened. As a researcher into the field of innovation and transformation, I have to tell you that there is not a single innovation in the world that was able to do this. Which is also the reason why Citibank shut its ATM down. Because probably this is what they were expecting. They didn't realize that rolling out the ATM is a hard process that has to be replicated across the world. What we propose is, we call the high-POHA approach, our own approach. We use a digital camera as a metaphor. So you do a zoom-in pivot, followed by a zoom-out pivot, and then you hit the promised land. Now the interesting thing is there is an invisibility cloak between the two. Citibank couldn't see past that. You can only see it as you enter your journey. You can't presuppose it, unfortunately. Now where do I zoom in, right? So we had to come up with a new phrase we call performance under supply. I'll tell you what this is shortly. How many of you remember, many of you seem very young, how many of you remember the days in India before the arrival of ATM? You have done banking? Okay. So what is the problem you would have seen? Queues, lethargic bank offices, manual process with ledger. Timing. Okay, timing. Now, on weekends you couldn't withdraw money, your own money. Now, did you see that as a problem? Therein lies my case. That is performance under supply. It exists. But because we have accepted that as a feature of the system, we no longer do anything about it. Dance in the middle of the street to catch the cab, that is accepted procedure. None of us would question it. So now if you look at every industry, every job, every function that you do, it has performance under supply. You have to notice it, but it is bottom of the iceberg. It's not easy to spot. I will give you one more. How many of you have met your doctor without having to wait? Assuming that doctor is reasonably popular. I have not seen a single human being raise their hand to this question. Because it's not possible through the world. But did you complain about it? You didn't. You don't. Because what is going to happen, especially in India, if you complain to your doctor, next patient, there is a big queue over there. So there is now, whichever person who is working on this problem, they solve it, they can rewire the healthcare system around their innovation. Like what Uber has done. It's very simple, but it is far reaching in its impact. Now, how much change should we have in the customer experience itself? And I want to give some kind of a ballpark estimate from you. Take Uber. Before Uber, all of you from Chennai, right? You all use Fast Track or some such? Okay. So before Uber and after Uber, what is the percentage change? And before iPhone and after iPhone. Before iPhone, we had those 4 smartphones. which Steve Jobs famously derided in his opening keynote of the iPhone in 2007. So just give me some ballpark percentages, before and after. What do you think? I know you're all waiting to do the lunch, but 70% for both? Uber is 80, iPhone? Minus. Okay. 30 to 40% only? Okay. It's not the world changing device, is it? Okay. So what happens is, if you look at Uber, sometimes, I am a fast track customer too. Sometimes I'm in a fast track car with the same fast track driver but in Uber. What has really changed? The beauty of the Uber strategy is they change the ride hailing step, which is the first step in the customer journey. And they use the GPS position to do that. And because they did that, the ride payment was also taken care of. So by changing one step, they rewired urban transportation across the world. That's all it takes for us to find. So I'll illustrate that through a World War II story. Any of you, any World War II buffs here? There's one. Okay. You might have heard of this story, sir. So the Allies were using an aircraft carrier near the German coast to bombard Germany with their bombs. So they needed bigger and bigger aircraft carriers. Now what happened was, anybody knows what is the part that is needed to turn the course of the ship? You can see that here. I don't know what do you call that. It starts with an R and ends in an R. The rudder. So prior design, because of the prior designs, the rudder was becoming as big as the aircraft carrier itself. With the result that the engine didn't produce enough power to turn the rudder, which rendered the aircraft carrier useless. So the aircraft carrier industry is stuck. So they invite a brilliant physicist by name Buckminster Fuller. He comes and he invents this small black device, if you can see that. It sits on top of the trim tab. It's called the trim tab. It sits on top of the rudder and it can turn with very little energy expended, which then turns the ship itself. So which proves the hypothesis that Peter Senge made several decades ago, that small changes can produce big results, but the highest leverage points are non-obvious, or we would call them bottom of the iceberg. So what is your trim tab? This is what we need to find. In your operation, where is the trim tab? You're all with me so far? Yes. Yeah? Sorry that I am standing between you and your lunch. So we will do a customer journey. This is, how many of you have done customer journey maps? Okay, so how many of you have done any other process flow map? Okay, good. This is more or less similar, but you are just mapping the steps of the customer, and I choose a restaurant journey. You decide on the cuisine, look for the restaurant, travel to the restaurant, park the car, wait to be seated. What are the next steps? Just tell me what would happen next, just like that. Yeah, you have to ask for the menu. Wait to be seated, you have to be seated, then you ask for the menu and so on. In the interest of time, we actually do this in round robin and figure this out quickly, but there's not enough time. So these are all the steps. Okay? The 6th step, eat food, wait, after sitting, decide on the order, wait, blah, blah, blah. You do this customer journey map. This is the first step in figuring out where the trim tab is. Now we have in the journey 3 types of signals that we say, performance under supply. The first one is negative emotion. In your restaurant journey, where will you see negative emotion? Long wait time. Quality of the food itself. Any other? Not friendly staff, price, all that. The turnaround time, which is how long you have to wait for your order, waiting to be seated. The third one we came up with is very interesting. You might not have come across this before. We call this opposers intention. I'll give you an example of that. Let's say that I am hosting 15, 20 of you and I'm taking you to the Ethiopian restaurant in Chennai called Abyssinia. How many of you have been there? Okay, very good. So now I take you to this Abyssinia restaurant, okay? And why would I take you to Abyssinia restaurant? Because I want you to experience a new cuisine. Now you look at this journey and which step there will be problems. What to order, exactly. This, decide on the order. You have no idea what this Ethiopian cuisine is, you have never eaten before. Now you have these helpful descriptions. For example, in America, in an Indian restaurant, you will see this. Deep fried lentil and rice balls soaked in something. What is that? Sambar vadai. If you can guess that from that description. So these descriptions are not very helpful. So the first step you get stuck. Now if you are an Ethiopian restaurant owner, what innovation could you bring at that point? Pictures, that's already there. Now we are thinking digital, remember? What are restaurants today doing? Videos, you have seen iPads being passed around these days. So we quickly identified a problem and we can solve it with technology. That's what we are trying to do. So take these things and we plot these into what we call as this performance under supply X-ray. How bad is this experience? And a step, those blocks are the step numbers. Anything that is appearing in all the 3 swim lanes likely is a trim tab. So this is how you will find your trim tab. Now I chose the restaurant for an important reason. Can anybody guess why I chose a sit-down kind of restaurant's customer journey? It's lunchtime. Sorry, I didn't know that. I know lunch is weighing heavily on your minds. I'm sorry. Most of us would have experienced that. That's true. But there's another more important reason. No. You see those words there? What does that mean? That customer journey represents the established wisdom of that industry. You can go to a sit-down restaurant in any part of the world, you will be inflicted with the same customer journey. This is what Uber was able to do. We were all hailing the cab in the same way. That's how they could become a global phenomenon. So, innovators find the performance under supply and question it and convert it into a problem and solve it. Right? This is the key. So, this is what we call as the zoom in pivot, a step. And then there are several examples of it, but I will choose Amazon.com. Remember Amazon.com in the year 1997. What is the performance under supply they were targeting? Remember, it's not a problem, and I am going to explain to you why we didn't see that as a problem. How many of you bought books in a brick and mortar store before the arrival of Amazon? What problem would you have experienced? Not finding the book that you want? Very good. So what did you do, ma'am, then? Exactly. You would have filled out a requisition slip that I have done many times. And then you went home and then hopefully it's a diligent store and they will call you or you keep calling them back. Now, did we consider that to be a problem? That's the case that I am making. So there is a performance under supply, but we don't think it's a problem because that's how that industry works. But Bezos said that's not acceptable. I will click that book and it will be delivered to my house. So you can rinse and repeat this over and over. Now look at Zappos. This is the company that, in the interest of time, I'm telling you, it delivers shoes over the internet. You can order shoes. Now if you have bought shoes from your brick and mortar store, what was the problem? Size. I look at the display, the shoe looks nice. I go inside and they say, sorry sir, in your size it's not available. Same problem. But Bezos didn't come up with that idea. By the time Zappos came, Amazon was in every other category but shoes. So the point I am making is there is nothing called this super uber innovating company. Everybody can find opportunity. Now Bezos had to buy Zappos for $3 billion later. It is such an important innovation. But Bezos missed it. So there is enough and more opportunity for all of us to do digital transformation. So the reverse of the zoom in pivot is the zoom out pivot, which is many customer journeys into a single product. What is an example of that? You carry that in your pocket, which in the interest of time is the smartphone. Research shows that $10,000 worth of devices that we were carrying previously is a free app on your phone. Agreed? Voice recorder, camera, video camera. I even now have a measuring tape in my phone, which measures anything through AR technology. It's just amazing. But there was a very important innovation that iOS introduced in July 2008, 1 year after the iPhone was introduced. What was that? The App Store. Very good. So that is the zoom out pivot that allows them to absorb functionality bit by bit. It will keep on accumulating functionality. Right? So you do this in a two-step process. You do a zoom in and then a zoom out. Uber, and the classic example I will give here in Indian context is, how many of you are Swiggy customers? All of you. Very good. Swiggy started, where? In which part of India? Bangalore is not sufficiently descriptive of their strategy. In Koramangala. In Koramangala, they will deliver from Koramangala restaurants to offices and residents in Koramangala. Hyper-local, zoomed-in strategy. And then they replicate themselves to any hyper-local area. And what is the technology they came up with? Same kind of Uber. What is new in that technology? Nothing. So it's just they have rewired the technology. I mean, they've rewired the customer journey and looked at it differently. I want to do a quick question of this. Some of you might remember the free email services of your 2 to 4 megabytes. Yeah, mailbox full condition. Can anybody guess who did this? They launched it on April 1st, 2004. Gmail with 1 GB. It seemed like the typical Google prank that they do. Now, what is interesting about this is, if you look at the customer journey, is there anything in the customer journey that changed of email? No, only the storage changed. So the storage seemed to be the trim tab, which they fixed, and then the rest is history. So you can find the trim tab even in what seems like the most mundane of things. There's many more examples of this. We will skip in the interest of time. So there is zoom in and zoom out. Let's just do one more. Let's do Alexa. Is it a zoom in or a zoom out? How many of you use Alexa at home? I don't say office because by the time you get through the firewall, I don't think, since ISACA people are here, you won't let it inside the office. So that question can't be asked. So what is it? Is it a zoom in or a zoom out? You have to, when you want to figure this out, right, you have to start where the innovator starts. Then only you can truly understand. What did Alexa do at first? Now what it does is different story. What? It was okay. In your Android phone or iPhone, what voice-based thing existed prior to Alexa? Siri and the Google Assistant. Nothing Alexa has done new. So they just pulled that functionality out. This is the zoom in pivot. Put it into a new standalone speaker. What did it do? Deliver weather, news, that's it. Again, they did something to do the zoom out pivot. What was that? The skill store. Same thing as the app store. Now, Alexa runs your house because anybody can add a skill to it. So the transformation strategy we are proposing is this two-step process, zoom in and zoom out. And you can come up with any number of things like that. So I want to end my session with this story. This is a beautiful story from Zen. I have shaved off about 15 minutes. Okay, so I have 2 more minutes and that's all this story will take. Okay, so there is a king who is terminally ill. And he has 3 sons. And he calls his 3 sons aside. How many of you have heard this story? Okay. Pardon me for the repetition. 3 or 4 have heard it. So the king says, I am terminally ill, but I am not a regular king to split the kingdom 3 ways. Only one of you will get the kingdom. And you have a 1-week challenge. And the challenge is like this. I have allocated a room in the palace for each of you. And here is some gold coins. Your job is to fill that room. Whoever does that best wins the kingdom. So the 1 week, the clock starts ticking. As soon as the king finished this speech, the first son ran out. And he came back with a lot of cattle, cows, sheep, and filled the room. And he was like, I have done it. The second son looks at it and says, wait a minute. Technically, he hasn't filled the room, right? There is gap on top of the cattle. So he went 2-3 days later, he comes back with bales of cotton, hay, and stacks the room. Not even air can pass. He is happy. The ministers come running. It is the 4th day. Says, sir, you have raised 2 good sons, but your 3rd son is the useless of all. He is sleeping in his room since you gave the challenge. The king says, it's okay. We have given them 7 days. We will wait. The 7th day comes. The 7th day evening, when the deadline is expiring, has come. He calls all the 3 sons. The first 2 sons display their work proudly. By now you might guess where this is headed. The 3rd son takes the king to the room, pulls out a candle from his left pocket and a match from his right pocket and lights it and says, sir, I have filled the room. Now it's obvious who got the kingdom. But what is the mistake the first 2 sons made? Sorry? Yeah, what is the mistake the first 2 sons did? No, I am trying to ask you, what is the mistake in the thinking process? What was the problem in their conventional thinking? I told you already something in the front of this session. Exactly. Objective is to fill the room. That is tip of the iceberg strategy. Now, fill the room once you take the idea out that, so the 3rd son, he was not sleeping. He was sitting and thinking, what did father mean by fill the room? And he looks at these first 2 guys and thinks, this can't be what father wanted. So the 6 days he was thinking what exactly the father wanted. And he figured out the father was looking for a smart answer. And he got the smart answer. Once you eliminate that you have to physically fill the room, some other ideas you could have generated. Like I can light an incense stick and fill the room with smell. Any number of possibilities come. Now we tend to start our initiatives from this level, as I pointed out to you. We go after the objective. We generate ideas from the objective. And it's not bad what the first 2 sons did. Is there anything wrong with what they did? But they got a mediocre outcome. They didn't get a transformative outcome. The 3rd son, so it's just a matter of thinking. We can all do it. And I hope we all get to do this. And as Ram Kumar said, we get to leverage this big opportunity that is in front of us. And I thank you all for listening to my speech. Thank you.